Well, welcome everyone to our Creating Arts in COVID-19 and Beyond. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Katie Blanton, and I'm a junior Arts and Entertainment Industries Management and Musical Theater double major here at Rider. And I'm also one of the students planning ArtBeast. So we're very excited for you all to be here. And I will be leading our panel today, along with an incredible group of panelists. So today we have David. He is the Advancement Director for New Jersey Ballet. So we're very excited to have him. We also have Jay Stern, who is one of our film professors here at Rider, and he is an award-winning film director and producer, so we're very excited to have him as well. And finally, we have Bernie Jackson, who is an entertainment lawyer, and he is also one of our very own AIM professors, and he has been teaching our commercial deal-making class, and so we are very grateful to him. But we can get started by having the three of you guys just introduce yourselves, as well as talk about your experience within the current field that you are pursuing. And David, we will start with you.
Well, hi, everyone. My name is David Tamaki. I'm Director of Advancement for New Jersey Ballet. My career started as a dancer at New Jersey Ballet. I danced there for a number of years, and then I made my transition into administration after having a career-ending injury. So I wanted to stay in this profession. So my education was focused on nonprofit management. And I have been with the ballet for over 20 years, and I continue to do grant writing, fundraising, and deal with a number of operational activities within the organization.
Awesome, very cool. And we also, there we go. We also had another panelist that just joined us, and it is Norm Lewis. So welcome, Norm. If you do not know Norm Lewis, he is an incredible Tony actor. He's been in the Phantom of the Opera, Les Mis, just to name a few. So we are very, very excited to have him here as well. So Norm, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself, talking about your experience as an actor and what you have been working on over the past year.
Hello, everyone. I'm just honored to be here. My friend Bernie Jackson, Bernard Jackson, brought me here, and it's ironic that you have the Phantom of the Opera right behind you. So that's awesome. Yeah, as you said, I'm an actor. I've been in New York now about 31 years or so, and pursuing this craft and this dream of being an actor. This past year has obviously been a change for everyone. And there's new ways of trying to create things, and Zoom is one of those things. And so it's been very interesting, very rewarding in some cases, because you're able to reach out to people you haven't touched in a while. So that's pretty much it. I mean, there's a lot I could go into as far as work. A lot of work has been taken away, but then there's a lot that has come into my life. So several TV shows and movies this year. So.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We're very happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
And Jay, talk a little bit about your field experience and what you've been working on.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jay Stern, as has been said. I'm a film and theater director based in New York City, and now film professor at Rider. And yeah, I mean, this year's been a challenge, obviously, for everyone. But I will say, at least in the film world, there's a lot of development that's happened. I've been working on a TV project that got sort of pushed forward because no one was doing anything, so we could have meetings and start planning and start pitching. So there's a lot of that. And then we actually created a project we'll talk about probably later on this discussion about at Rider for Rider students, the professional film project. And that was interesting, sort of going back to that and dealing with COVID protocols and that kind of setup is really something that has changed things, and is probably will change things for the long-term future as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Bernie, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Once again, I'm Bernie Jackson. I'm a practicing attorney in New York, and mostly in the entertainment space. I've been practicing for some 30 years. I think I started practicing in New York once Norm moved here. And that's what was my motivation to start in the entertainment business. But I've been very fortunate to work with a lot of artists in all the different disciplines, I think, in the arts, whether it's music, film, theater, book publishing, and a lot of unique experiences recently with doing museum installations with one of my clients to present his art. So it's very interesting times, and looking forward to our discussion this afternoon.
Awesome, great, thank you so much. So starting off this panel, we're gonna take it a year back. So this is right before COVID hit. I'd love to hear from you guys what projects you all were working on, and then when COVID hit, what happened and where did you have to go from there? If anyone would like to start. Or go for it, Bernie.
I'll jump in. One of the interesting projects I was working on is a project called Negus, which was a museum installation done with one of my clients, Yassine Bey. We had just done the Brooklyn Museum of Art. And it was an installation in which he wanted to present his music with different art pieces around the room. After we had some success with that, after the Brooklyn run, we had planned on taking it around the world. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we basically were stopped in our tracks. So that had been like a major focus for us. And, it's just stopped, stalled, and now we're trying to, get it back going. But we had this real momentum at that time. So that was one of the things that really impacted us.
Yeah, likewise, I had a play about to open in April in New York City. One person show, small piece, but it was, funded and ready to go. And I had a piece that was potentially going to be touring in Italy as well. And, obviously these things are on hold, hopefully coming back, but, who knows?
And on our end, we were in the middle of our preparing for our spring season. We were also preparing for our annual gala prior to COVID shutdown. And we had several programs coming up, children's series and All-American themed program featuring a work by Agnes DeMille Rodeo. And unfortunately, our last show was a sensory-friendly show at the Union County Performing Arts Center. And it was a week after that we got the orders to shut down.
And what about you, Norm? What were you working on over a year ago?
I sound self-indulgent. I mean, but everybody's other project sounds amazing. Mine sounds self-indulgent. But I was traveling and doing a lot of concerts around the world. I literally had just come back from Africa and performing there.
You sent a link. He said the panel they have.
Oh, hi, Lisa. And I went down to Washington D.C. to perform with at the Kennedy Center to do a concert there, and then we got shut down. So there were things on the horizon, but obviously everything got postponed. So. And then, like I said before, there were some new things that came up. So, a door shuts, a window opens. So.
Exactly, for sure. And especially with COVID too, there have been new protocols that, of course, been coming up with the creation of art. So, Bernie, would you mind kind of discussing, like, especially with contracts, like how protocols have really had to be specific in those and kind of the impact of that, at least in the entertainment law aspect?
Well, I think the one thing everyone is trying to figure it out. That's the most important thing, and everyone's especially because of the nature of the way many theaters are even constructed. There's a lot of implications on how we're going to address it. Number of audience size, but not only that, as we've discussed in class, just even such things as backstage. Especially when it comes to Broadway, backstage Broadway theaters is not a very large environment. So there's a lot of concern about the artists and their safety, of course. And of course, the unions got very much involved in it, and it impacted a lot of things. But because basically it is something out of control of producers, many things are just canceled. And it's a matter of no one knew where it was going to go and how the contracts are going to impact things. And I think everyone's still trying to resolve what was happening and then what's now going to happen. So it was just, the shutdown just stalled everything, and the contracts really hadn't addressed it in a meaningful way, just because we didn't know what the remedies were.
For sure. And go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Jay.
I would say on the note too, in the off-Broadway and off-Broadway spaces I tend to work in, there's the audiences and the actors are often sharing the same bathroom space, or the proximity of the stage is problematic. I mean, it's great for live visceral theater, but it's not great for spreading a virus in a small space. And I can imagine that a lot of these new spaces, or these older spaces, are going to have to be retrofitted or not be able to go back to being theater spaces potentially.
For sure, for sure. And I know, David, you've been trying to kind of navigate funding right in this COVID world. What has that process been like, trying to get funds for your nonprofit and getting that support in this crazy time?
I mean, the one saving grace is the federal government at this time, with the Shuttered Venues grant finally live and accepting applications, PPP funding, various state grants that are becoming available. There's been a huge influx of government money. Foundations have also been extremely responsive. They've either remained committed to their existing grantees. You've seen pop-ups of emergency funds for nonprofits. And definitely for each organization, it's different, but a number of individuals as well as board members have taken this opportunity to step up and really get behind the organizations that they support.
For sure, for sure. And Norm, especially being an artist, how have these protocols kind of affected your, creative making and everything that you have been doing?
Well, it's been very interesting with television and film, which is what I've actually been immersed in these past few months. They check if you're on a particular episode for a while, they will, even on your days off, they'll come pick you up, get you tested, and then you come back home. So that was in the fall. Now that the vaccine is here, I think that there's a little bit more of a lax in that, but still very, I'm getting ready to do, not to give myself a shameless plug, but I'm getting ready to do a concert May 10th at Lincoln Center, the outdoor space. And even though the band is vaccinated, and I think there's protocol for the audience, because there's a limited amount of people who can come, 400 people, 2 people per pod, 200 pods. There's going to be protocol there as well. People testing you as soon as you walk in. Even though the tickets are free, it's a lottery situation. So I think it's a new frontier when it comes to spaces, especially live spaces, where I saw last year, I'm sorry if I'm taking up so much time, but I saw last year that in Korea and some other places that they had low numbers, they were still doing live theater, but they were having people masked. They were taking their temperature before they walked in, and they had to sanitize their hands. So that might be the new protocol, at least for a while. So who knows?
Who knows?
One of the things that was interesting last summer, I don't know if you all are familiar with it, but Dave Chappelle basically did Camp David out in Yellow Springs, Ohio. And what he did is he actually had a COVID test truck on site, and they were doing rapid testing. Everyone had the temperature checked as well. Once again, everyone's clean, and they had everyone sit in units. And he was able to be very successful throughout the summer. Unfortunately, then it got cold in Ohio and it went down to Austin. They had some greater problems, but he was able to address it that way. So I think being outdoors, having the opportunity to do a lot more things outdoors is going to really help a lot of productions come back.
For sure. I think outdoors is definitely going to be a huge element. And also filming has just become a huge element as well. I know for ArtBeast this year, we had a live concert, but we pre-recorded it just to make it safer for everyone. And Jay, I know you've been doing a lot of filming work for a long time now, but especially with COVID, how has kind of the filming process been changed? Have you been getting more projects coming, or how has that changed for you?
Yeah, I want to say one thing before I answer that. That's interesting because you were mentioning a lot of more people are filming than used to be filming, and I think I'm actually excited to see that there's a lot more crossover of theater artists coming into film, and that definitely wasn't so much the case. It was for actors, but not for directors and designers. And seeing there's hybrid work. It's going to be, I think, probably a lot of great culture is going to come out of this down the road in terms of those borders being now more open, and that was really encouraging to see. But as far as, so, I mean, the challenge is, I've gotten a lot more post work. I've been editing a lot more than I normally do. There are things that were happening, or people were shooting stuff remotely, needed editors or needed, so I was being brought in quite often. as an editor on a couple projects. And I have one that's actually shooting this weekend that is a theater piece. It's being shot 3-camera, and I've been asked to sort of cut it into something that's a bit cinematic in some ways, and it's working with people I know from the film world and the theater world, and that's really fun. That stuff is starting to happen it's definitely in the low budget world. But on a technical level, yes, of course, that now because of the COVID compliance is an issue. We shot a project with Rider seniors who are normally going to be going to LA this semester, but couldn't. So we try to create a professional shoot for them to be on. And I brought in a team and some actors from the city, and we followed the Screen Actors Guild COVID, compliance requirements, which are constantly changing, but also, pretty rigid as well. And we had students trained in COVID compliance and were certified. We had a lot of procedures in place for that. We created the projects to be shot mostly outside or shot with small, only 2-person scenes inside with small crews. So the project was conceived with safety in mind too, which was an interesting way to approach the writing. And I will say that my last feature was shot in the UK, and there's, at least from what it felt like, at least on the set I was on, there's a lot more of a ingrained culture of having health and safety on set. There were health and safety officers on this production at all times, and a lot of reporting, self-reporting of health issues, which it seems now it's normal for everything, but it seemed rare when I saw that over there. But that might be something that's going to be a regular thing, to budget that into your scheduling, to actually make sure people leave. I will say, in every theater production I've been on, everyone gets the same cold at one point. I mean, it just happens because everyone's close to each other and hugging and sharing backstage areas. So, that kind of trying to prevent that kind of thing is going to be much more common, I would imagine. And I would think also for legal purposes too, but it adds time. It adds time and money to your projects, but it's going to have to be done.
Yep, for sure. And it's definitely something to keep in mind. And I know New Jersey Ballet is coming up with a live performance soon too as well. So David, do you want to talk about kind of what the protocols have been like for that and some of the struggles you've been facing with putting that on live after being virtual for so long?
Well, I will say that virtual is probably here to stay. At least it'll be an addition to live programming. We are working to try and have a live performance. With regard to protocols, I feel like it changes every week. So we're constantly trying to stay on top of what is the latest guidance, what are we supposed to be doing? I mean, now that the vaccine is open, at least in New Jersey, for anyone 16 and over, depending on which vaccine you're getting, to get a vaccination, we are seeing most of the artists get vaccinated. So this is good. And the biggest concern is, of course, the public. As well as our artists, but we have a little more control over that. It's going to be how do we manage the audience? And then as we go into possibly the fall, each venue that we tour in is going to have its own set of protocols that we're going to have to adhere to in their writer contracts. So I don't think there's going to be, maybe the theaters work together and have a standardized format, but I think it's going to be a lot of navigating each venue's protocols.
For sure. And on top of protocols too, obviously COVID has had a huge impact on mental health, and since we've all been apart for so long. So if you guys want to speak upon just how COVID has affected your creative process, whether that's leading an arts industry, performing, directing, producing, you all have been on all fronts of that end. So how has that affected your creative process and your mental health throughout this time? Jay, I'll have you start if you'd like.
Mental health. I don't know. My mental health is always as unstable as it always is, regardless of this. I don't know if this is, it's trying for everyone in so many ways. As far as how that's affected the work, I will say definitely this is an industry which, at least I felt, support network is there that was very strong, and people were very much in touch. I do think also that there are a lot of broader discussions among the unions and among groups and individual companies. And of course, we can't forget what happened over the summer and Black Lives Matter, and a lot of institutions are examining themselves. A lot of directors are examining their practices as well. So it made us, I think, introspective, but I do think that there was a lot of larger discussions that needed to happen that we're able to in this time. And if anything, I think the fact that it's easy to feel alone as an artist, and I think a lot of us feel less alone only because, at least my experience, I've been connecting with people in Britain, California, Germany, Chicago. I've had readings of stuff where we're bringing in artists from all over the world. We're able to watch things that happen in different places now, so it's broadened that picture somewhat, and I think that's been helpful, especially in the time of isolation and in just really a lot of important introspection, to have that larger voice.
For sure, for sure.
Sorry, that was a little rambling, but
No, but really great insight. Bernie, what are your thoughts?
Basically, most of the clientele I work with, I think now they're more anxious as to how to exploit what they've been able to take some time to create during this period. And that's now is actually where I'm hearing from more frustration or anxiety. I think that was in some ways the break allowed people to take a step back and focus on different things they wanted to do, projects they wanted to be involved in. But now it's like, what's going to be the next step with that? So I think people have kind of come through it. And like Jay was saying, the unions have been very active in providing, services to their members to address, the mental health. And I do think Zoom is right. I think everything Jay's saying is great, that, so many people have jumped on the Zoom, gave so many people the opportunity to participate or view things throughout the world. I think that's been one of the assets of it, and it's kind of forced us into that. So it's going to be interesting, really, what comes next.
For sure, for sure. And David, what do you think?
I think, in the beginning, it was a very challenging, and if it wasn't for Zoom, I think it would have been even more challenging. And Zoom has really allowed, or these types of platforms have really allowed for collaboration that was probably never really thought of before. This really allowed collaborations to occur that people wouldn't have normally thought of, in my opinion. And I think going forward, there's going to be such a rush to go back to normal. And there could be another level of frustration because the new normal is not going to be what everyone wants, at least in the beginning, with all these protocols, whether it's attending a performance or how we operate backstage. It's going to, I think, be a challenge in the beginning to adjust to this new normal as we try to return to some form of normalcy.
For sure. And I think we're all ready to get back to that sense of normalcy, but we need to do it safely. And I think that's going to be a big element. And Norm, I'm very curious to hear your answer on this because you are a performer, you are an artist, and I can say as an artist myself, it's been really difficult trying to keep on doing art and being a part of art apart because entertainment and the arts are just such a collaborative field. So I'm curious to see kind of what has been going on with you throughout this year and your thoughts on this.
Well, listen, the last three gentlemen just put it perfectly, especially what Jay was saying, that it gave us more opportunities to work on bigger things when it came to what happened last year, even with just what happened recently with a big mogul being taken down in this industry and being able to now go, people feel empowered. And I feel that now there's going to be a lot more opportunities for more stories to be told from different people and different cultures and the empowerment in that. And right, it's kind of like when I was over in, I lived in Poland for 3 months back right after the wall came down, and back in like in the early 90s. And it was interesting to watch the different people. Some people have been told what to do for so long, they didn't know what to do. But then there were those people who were like ready to jump on this newfound freedom. And I'm correlating those two things right now because I see that there's this newfound freedom that people have, and creating content and creating spaces for other audiences to embrace this culture and this industry. So I'm excited. It's not going to be a new normal, just like, it is going to be a new normal, like David said. And I think that what we call Zoom is going to be a major thing in different genres, as far as theater, as far as creating content for streaming, things like that. And so I'm excited. I cannot wait. I'm anxious. Like Bernie was saying, people are anxious now. So.
For sure. We're all just anxious to be together and see the new arts that are forming. And so this is a kind of a perfect segue to kind of hear all of your thoughts on where do you think the arts are going from here? I know we've kind of heard some thoughts twinkled along the way, but what are your thoughts as we're kind of going into this post-COVID, crossing fingers, post-COVID world? Upcoming projects you guys may all have as well. Where do you see the arts going within these next few years?
Well, I'll just jump back in, just since I was on that train anyway. So
Yes.
I will say that I just know that a lot of people are coming to me who don't have a name in this industry and asking me, would I look at their content or sing their music, or, would I participate in some sort of Zoom or some sort of reading of it? And I have done a couple of those things. And I even went back, there was a retro project that I did, a radio hour. So it went back to the 1940s of having that whole radio hour where there was no visual, but we did it live last Halloween. We did Dracula for 2 nights, but they're starting content like that as well. So I think, it's just going to be this a free for all. There's going to be so much out there. So.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah, and then I think. Oh, sorry. Did you want to?
Oh, no, the only thing I was going to say would add to what Norm was saying. I think it is now because of what else went on with Black Lives Matter. Now we have the social awareness with Asian hate, that we are getting to hear a lot of different voices, and I think that's going to really impact art as we transition and people start working together and hearing other stories. So I think it's going to be a very positive thing. And I think it's interesting, as David was saying, the government kind of stepped up. In this country, we don't have a lot of government involvement really in the arts as compared to Europe. Like the British theater, they jumped to the table right away. So the government jumped to the table for British theater. So I think it's going to be interesting how that all works out and how government participates and the way in which stories are going to be told.
And I was just going to say that how on that as well, this idea of this accessibility to artists and to organizations. And Norm was saying people are writing him, sending him music, and he's doing it and these things, and also people diversifying what they do. That audio drama has become a big deal actually lately because it's easier to produce, and it's like putting on a show without having to do. Everyone has microphones at home; they can build these things, and so there's going to be a lot of creativity from people who don't normally make art, but also the people who make art are going to be doing it in new ways. And again, I think I've filled out dozens of surveys for major arts organizations and minor arts organizations that I know are rethinking the way they do things and how they reach their audiences. And since so much stuff was streamed that normally wasn't, you can watch the National Theater now in ways you couldn't. You can watch shows in Germany. They can watch your shows. There's that growing international audience hearing a concert, doing whatever. I watched a concert performed in LA by a solo artist who I love, who's just doing a solo thing on the piano, and that was anyone could tie into that, and I think that's going to last. That was one of the gifts of Zoom. I mean, it does not replace the live experience, but at least if you are growing up anywhere in the world and want to engage with the arts, you have the world available to you. And I think organizations are going to be aware of that fact, and they're going to start catering maybe to realizing that they can reach a much wider scope of people than they normally do who subscribe to their seasons.
For sure, for sure. David, what are your thoughts on the future of the arts and everything that's coming?
Well, I think all of the other panelists really covered it well. And I think to add to that is you're going to see more partnerships, probably more strategic partnerships and collaboration of producing. I just think that the art that's going to be created now, I think is going to push for further, it's going to be more creative, and it's going to push for social discussion.
For sure. And do you all think too, I know the virtual element has just been such, like you all mentioned, like a really big platform to get more audiences. Do you think that's going to continue? And if so, for how long?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, yes, period. That's a complete sentence right there. It's even filtering into the business world. I don't think that the big corporations are going to go back to their buildings and have all these elaborate rooms and all that kind of stuff. Now they know that people can work from home and they can probably come in once a week for a meeting, So I think across the board, thank God for Zoom. Thank you, Lord, for Zoom. And it's funny because there's many different platforms that are Zoom-esque, but it's like, how when we say that we want to copy something, say we need to Xerox it, even though that's not the company that makes the machine, or Kleenex, there's different companies that make, so this is going to be the new thing. It's going to, hey, I got to Zoom you today. You're too young to know this, but back in my day, when I was, the caveman days, there was a TV show called The Jetsons, and we were wondering when that was going to happen, and it's actually happening. I can call you and see your face and talk to you like this. So this is amazing. It's going to be amazing. So that's filtering into the art world as well.
For sure.
And I love that idea that David mentioned of the producing partnerships. That stuff is happening now too, because we're not limited by space. The people, even in the business world, people will not be flying to business meetings somewhere. They'll be doing this. So, but that means there's a lot more discussion that can happen on a regular basis between people, and like that's going to lead to all kinds of partnerships and collaborations and different, just a broader discussion. So that's, in a weird way, as much as the COVID time has locked us at home, it's forced us to reach out for different kinds of experiences, partnerships. And I think that's something no one's going to want to give up. And it's free. I mean, if I have a panel, if I have a panel at school like this, I mean, I'm not limited to who I can get on campus that day. It's now like totally international. And you can get people who want to show up because they're too busy, that can definitely be there for 20 minutes. Why not?
For sure. And go ahead, Bernie.
No, I was just going to say, and let's keep in mind that technology is going to continue to get better. I think one of the interesting things is going to be VR. And, once we get to virtual reality, how are artists going to take that and implement that into a performance, or what it is they're going to do? So I think it's going to be exciting in a lot of ways. And I think it's going to be very beneficial to the arts and a lot of experiences for people.
And that's what I think is kind of ironic about all of this, is although we all have been apart for so long, we've actually been together in so many ways and meeting new people and having new experiences because of this virtual platform. And I think that's going to be something really huge as we move into this next arts world, for sure.
Yeah, I hope I'm sorry for interrupting, but I just saw someone sent me a virtual complete show that the show is called Amour, that was on Broadway, and I happened to be in the original company, Puff Puff, but and there's an album if you want to go buy it that I'm saying anyway. But what they did was amazing and astounding. No one was together. What they did was they each individually did their scenes at their own homes, and then they were put together by whatever magic that these people put together, and it was a complete story. And they were doing duets with each other side by side and group numbers all together. So what Bernie was saying with the whole virtual reality, it's coming. It's coming.
It is coming for sure. And Norm, I'm curious to hear your perspective on this. This is a little more specific to theater, but obviously auditions have been in person for so long. Do you think they're going to start being virtual, or do you think we're going to have like those big open calls like we've had in the past due to COVID?
Well, I mean, even before COVID, there was a lot of what they call self-tapes, but since COVID, yes, I've had several auditions online, and I even had a lot more voiceovers because I was able to buy equipment, and that's kind of where that world was going too, because it was easy to keep that industry going. So yeah, I actually see a lot more of these online sort of auditions.
Very interesting to see. Yeah. And I know, like, for the musical theater department here at Rider, they've been really honing in on self-tapes and everything we need to know for that, because that's going to be the future of the arts. That's going to be a really big part of what we continue to do. So For these last couple of minutes, I'd love to give you guys all some time to talk about your upcoming projects, what you guys are working on now, what you guys are excited about, maybe some upcoming projects in the future. So please take this time to talk about projects for the audience that they should be looking forward to from you all. And anyone can start. All right, David. Oh, go Jay, go Jay, go for it.
I was going for the team here.
Go for it.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. Well, so we have a project in post that we shot during COVID with students at Rider. We adapted some short stories by Jorge Luis Borges, got the rights to the stories, and made some short films that it's sort of an anthology project. And I'm really excited that we were able to do that. The Rider students really rose to the challenge. We had some Rider actors as well as some professional actors there. And that's right now actually in editing. We should have that finished this summer. And that's gonna be a really fun project to get out into the world in the fall through festivals. And then, yeah, a lot of stuff in development. I'm equally frustrated. I think if both Bernie and Norm mentioned that people are really anxious right now because they've been doing a lot of stuff, doing a lot of prep. I have a TV project and a screenplay that I'm really, really anxious to get done. That I've been in pit sessions all during COVID and getting that project together. And it's like, I finally just want to get out and start doing that. That would be very nice. So those things there.
Very cool. Well, best of luck with that. We'll definitely be on the lookout. So congratulations. All right, David, I'm taking it to you.
Okay. We have a virtual project coming up where we're going to be highlighting our ballet Don Quixote. Some people are actually right now at our studio filming some new content. So any of our upcoming projects can be found at our website at www.njballet.org. And as we're working out the logistics right now for potential live performance in the coming weeks, probably around June. And we're really looking forward to the fall, where I think a lot more relaxation of COVID restrictions will be in place and we can resume some more public programming.
For sure. That's exciting though. We're finally moving in that direction. So wonderful. I know, Bernie, you have a lot of clients doing a lot of incredible work. Any projects we should be looking out for?
Well, the one that we worked on during COVID, and now it's going to be released on Luminary, is a podcast with Dave Chappelle, Yassine Bey, and Talib Kweli. That gets made available to the public this month. So looking forward to that coming out. And I'm also going to put on my producer hat and work on a docu-series about Black pioneers in technology and their inventions and people that we don't really know about. And hopefully Norm will let me hire him to do the voiceover, and maybe even he'll let me get involved with Black Theater United, and that's what I'm looking forward to in coming up.
Very awesome. And Norm, I know you have your concert coming up, as you mentioned, but any other projects we should be on the lookout for?
Again, this sounds so self-indulgent. But anyway, I've been lucky and blessed, even because I lost all my jobs last year. So there's an ABC series called The Women of the Movement that will be coming out either this summer or fall, and it's an anthology series. And it's this season, it's kind of like The Crown. There's going to be a different cast every year, every season. So this year they're dealing with Mamie Till, Emmett Till's mother. And I'm playing Roy Wilkins, who was the head of the NAACP at that time. And there's 2 episodes of that. I have a virtual concert that I did in Chicago for the Lyric Opera there, and that will be hopefully coming out in June. My concert in May. I have several concerts this summer, and I'm getting ready to go down to Nashville to shoot a Lifetime movie with Reba McEntire and John Schneider. It's going to come out in Christmas. So I'm excited. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on the horizon and very blessed. But Jay, I know that you're working on something, so this is my audition for your TV project. So let me know.
Excellent. Thank you.
And if I could dance, David, I would audition for you as well. I just have a question for Jay, if I can.
Go for it.
I am so I admire people that, I feel so blessed to be on this panel of this intelligentsia I called, but I want to know, did you read all those books behind you?
No, see, I was asked this question before. No, my wife's a writer, so she half these books at least are hers. I've read a bunch of them though. You know,
I
sure.
mean, I don't even think, like, even if you said you did half of those, I don't think I've ever read that many in my life, and I'm almost
I'm
50
older than I
years
look. I mean, this is the King Arthur book. This is, I haven't read this one. I mean, yeah, I don't know. This is a
I
book
wanna-
by a writer professor friend of mine who I should have read by now, but I actually haven't. You know,
I love it. I love it. So this is inspiring me to start reading more. So
I will say this, I read tons, like those first few months, because you know, I don't know what happened, but I had not read much in a year or two, but I read maybe 24 books
wow.
last summer and fall, because I don't know, it was just an extra thing to do, but it
Right.
was, we were trying to keep our minds occupied. I think that, I know those of us who are working in the industry, I'm sure all of us actually felt this way, because we're working so constantly and so busy and multitasking, this job, that job, this project, that project. There's a lot of stuff floating around. When that stuff kind of stopped, my mind was still working and I didn't know what to do with it, you know? And so I kind of, and I don't meditate. I don't, you know, I couldn't stay home and do drugs. I don't do that, you know, and don't do that, kids. Don't do drugs. But reading was really something that kept me going for a while. It was great. And yeah.
That's so cool. All I have to say is great minds think alike, because Bernie literally asked Jay that question before you hopped on, Norm. So you two have the same mind. I love it. Very, very cool. So we have a few minutes left. So audience, I will give you guys this time if you want to unmute and ask a question to this incredible group of panelists that we have today. I want to give you guys the time. All right, we have a question here in the chat. Question for Bernie. So are theaters and arts venues exposed to any additional legal liability by hosting live performances during a pandemic? And how does that increase the cost of productions?
Wow. I mean, it's once again, it's going to be somewhat enter at your own risk. There is going to be some liability, like there's going to be a minimum of protocols that a theater will probably have to meet, just like anything else. It's similar to almost like when we had to make theaters more accessible to the handicapped. So there's going to be certain things you have to do. If you don't do them, then there's going to be liability. But as long as they meet those requirements, the standards that are going to be set, I think they'll be fine. But there is going to be an additional cost. And it's going to be interesting what's going to happen to pricing. You know, it's really curious. I mean, I'm looking at like the NBA, where the NBA somehow they're charging like $600 a ticket. You know, I don't know how many you know, disciplines in entertainment space can really have an audience that can, you know, handle that. But it's going to be interesting to see how that all works out.
For sure, for sure. Are there any other questions from the audience? You guys can unmute, type in the chat.
I would just like to ask Norm. He mentioned the soundtrack for More, was it? Do you have a promo code for that?
I don't. I wish I did, but what's so beautiful about it is that they were all mailed green screens, so they could have sets put all around them, and it actually is beautiful. It's I wish I could name the company right now, but I just know that I was expounding on what you were talking about as far as AI and the future of where we're going with this, and it turned out to be really beautiful. I thought it was going to be stupid, but it was really nice.
All right, we have a question here in the chat. So what is something you all miss the most, and what is something you are looking forward to the most when the new normal is here? Great question, Brendan.
Live theater, going into the theater and watching live performers in that space with the live crowd, sharing that experience of being present and watching that event unfold like that. That's it. That's the thing I miss the most.
For sure. Any other panelists have any insight?
I would
Ditto.
That's it, right, Norm? I would think from you, Norm, I mean, getting the live feedback.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing like that visceral reaction that you get from an audience member. I just remember one in particular when I was doing a show where I had to kill someone on stage, and a friend of mine, really good friend of mine, was sitting with his wife in the second row, and he audibly screamed. And he said afterwards, he's like, Norm, I just did not see you. I saw this character doing what he was doing. And it was, there's nothing like that. You know, it's different every night and you don't know what to expect. but it's so wonderful, and that you get such a rush and a high from the feedback from the audience. So I completely agree with what Jay was talking about.
All right, very cool. John, do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question for Norm. First of all, Norm, big fan. You're one of the reasons I went into theater in the first place. So thank you for that. But my question for you is, where, in regards to Broadway in particular, where do you see the actual product on stage going? Out of all the pandemic, everything that's happened this past summer, where do you see like the actual product and the productions being produced on Broadway going? Do you think we'll see the same movie musicals we see now with like Beetlejuice on those movie musicals, or do you see more new works and more different types of stories being produced on the Broadway stage?
Well, first of all, thank you for that. It was very kind of you to say those words. I see, it's a matter of economics, because those kinds of musicals or that content actually brought in an audience. It was a name recognition, things like that. But I do think that there's going to be a whole new landscape of material coming out, because so many stories need to be told and want to be told. And I think there's going to be this new audience that are going to be like excited about what that content is going to be. So many different stories. It's crazy, because we just don't know what's going to happen. I was talking to someone recently about the future of Broadway, and there's so many different components that come with that. Broadway is kind of the heartbeat or the heart of New York. And then you have these ventricles that go out to the bars and the restaurants and the hotels and the travel agents and things like that. And you got to get those people in place in order for this to happen. And so I just don't know how soon that's going to happen. I know that people are trying to come back in September, but we just don't know. We just don't know.
We'll see. We'll see. I'm very curious to see how that all turns out. But I'm going to actually end the panel here, because I know we have another panel coming up at 4 o'clock with some incredible songwriters. So make sure to check that out. But panelists, thank you so, so much for being a part of such a wonderful conversation. You all have been doing such amazing work for the arts and entertainment fields from all elements, all aspects. So it's been so wonderful hearing your insight, and best of luck on your future projects. You have some really exciting things coming up. So we really appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedules to be here. But thank you guys so much for coming.